Hello and welcome to the Guardian Football Weekly. That was a good game, wasn't it, Barry? Game of the season, best game since the last, best game you can remember. PSG 5, Bayern 4. It was thrilling. Two teams completely committed to playing quick, attacking football. So many brilliant players playing brilliantly. Kane put Bayern ahead. It could have been 2. PSG came back. Kvaratskhelia and then tiny man João Neves with a header. Elise banged one in for 2-2. Then a game's gone penalty for 3-2 PSG. In the second half, 4-2, 5-2. Did anyone think it was over? 5-3. And then the goal of the night. Kane's perfect pass, the touch of the night from Diaz to bring it down, delay and fire home. Wonderful stuff. Also last night, a huge game in the Championship at St Mary's, and Jack Clarke's late goal means Ipswich are in the box seat for promotion while Southampton settle for the playoffs. There's Man United's win over Brentford from Monday, Jose to Real Madrid, ? And more of the feature of the season, Roy Hodgson in the wild in the West Country. All that plus your questions, and that's today's Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today, Barry Glendenning, welcome.
Hello, Max.
Hello, Johnny Liew.
Hi.
And welcome, Jonathan Wilson.
Morning. How you doing?
Very well. Andrew says, while PSG Bayern was outstanding, how does it really hold up to Wrexham being 5-2 down at home to Dover after 63 minutes in March 2022, only to come back to win 6-5 with 91st and 96th minute strikes from local lad João Davies? There's levels to this. PSG 5, Bayern 4, the highest scoring semi-final in Champions League history. 9 goals, only 11 shots on target. Manuel Neuer didn't actually have to make a save. First time in 2.5 years that Bayern have conceded 5 in a game. I know you're not a goals guy, Wilson, but this was special, I thought, this football match.
Yeah. I mean...
Here we go.
No, it was a little bit like, you know, if you get like a really good chocolate mousse.
Okay.
And like the first 2 or 3 spoonfuls are amazing. And then you think, oh God, I've still got a whole bowl of this and I'm starting to feel slightly nauseous. And by half time, I was already thinking, this could do with some toasted oats just to sort of calm it down. And by the end, I felt slightly nauseous. And so on the one level, it was brilliant. Obviously, it was an incredible thing to watch. The level of attacking football was brilliant. The drama was brilliant. But I couldn't help thinking, this is actually just an indictment of modern football, that this is what happens if you let half a dozen clubs get more money than everybody else by a massive margin. They can just accumulate all the best players there. And then in the domestic leagues, they never have to bother defending, so they don't actually know how to defend. And there's no midfield. There's no toasted oats, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It's all too much of one thing. And then, you know, maybe if Manuel Neuer had actually been tested at all in the Bundesliga this season, they'd have noticed that he's too old and they should have been got rid of years ago. Like, he had an awful night. He was terrible. So it was brilliant, but it was sort of a hollow brilliance, I felt.
Oh, well, there we are. That's it's pissed on everyone's chips, hasn't it? Do you go with that, Johnny?
I mean, no, not really.
Please. Just give him sugar, he'll be fine.
No, it is good. I mean, I think the crux of the question here is whether this was bad defending or intentional non-defending. I think there's a difference there. Like, is this a failure of defending, or is this because everyone knows about the attacking talent on the pitch, and both teams are aware that that's their strengths. So is this both teams just trying to play to their strengths, or do they do it badly? And I think it's a bit of both. Like, if you take the Elise goal for 2-2, which is a great finish, but he also takes the ball totally unopposed in what the bit around the area, the bit that the nerds call zone 14. Like, simple Pavlovic pass. He's got 6 players around him, but they're not close to him. So to me, that's not a game plan. That's just bad football. Pavlovic should not be able to pick apart the midfield and defence of the European champions. So, but then you have the Neves goal. Well, the Doué chance from which the corner comes where Neves makes it 2-1, which is basically a simple throw out from Safinov. And like a throw out from the keeper, and suddenly Paris at 3-on-3. Now, to me, that's not bad defending. That's what Kompany wants. That's the gamble he's kind of taken. Because, like, by and large, I think if a defender is 3 yards out of position, it's probably their fault. And if they're 30 yards out of position, that's the coach's fault. So I think what we saw was I think Paris were just a little bit. I think Kompany was happier with the openness of the game, and I think Paris got suckered into it a little bit. And I think if the first leg was in Munich, it would be a very, very different game. You would get a much smarter Paris, maybe trying to control the game a bit more, trying to bait Bayern a bit more and manoeuvre them around. And at 5-2, I think they basically have a foot in the final. But I'm not I'm not as confident. I still think they do it, but I'm not as confident now because I think they missed a huge opportunity there to put the tie to bed.
I hate, Barry, to stereotype this panel as two sort of thinking man's journalists and then two sort of more rudimentary type people. But we are on me and you are on the bottom of the screen. And I don't know about you, I was just like, this is a really entertaining football match. And I haven't thought beyond that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're in a bad place when the cheerleading duties fall to me. But this is very much a first world problem, but I often resent the fact that I am often professionally obliged to watch terrible football matches. And this season, I seem to have seen an awful lot more than I usually have to sit through. Whereas if I wasn't professionally obliged, I could just turn them off and go and do something else. But last night I was watching this and I felt sad for any football fan who couldn't watch it for whatever reason, because they can't afford the subscription or they'd made other plans or, whatever. Because I enjoyed every second of this game. I enjoyed the fearless approach of both teams. I loved the speed, the movement. Every touch was a rapier thrust. The absolute standout quality of all the attacking players on the pitch. Wayne Rooney and Clarence Seedorf were being a bit grumpy, like the two Jonathans, bemoaning the poor defending. But when I look back on the game, and I watched the highlights again this morning, there were no conspicuously bad mistakes that led to goals that I can remember. There were no glaring errors. Neither goalkeeper made a mistake. That was, he's dropped a clanger there. Just the quality of the attacking play by all sort of six front men was just brilliant. Okay.
I did not hate that at all. I thought that was a brilliant game of football. I was just trying to analyse.
Fair enough, yeah. But like Nuno Mendes, say, and Achraf Hakimi are two of the best fullbacks on the planet. And they both got absolutely rinsed last night. And I'm not sure what else they could have done to be better. Just sometimes your man, he's too good for you and there's nothing you can do.
But that's where it's the coach's job to create a situation where the fullbacks aren't isolated, to make sure you always have cover there so they can't get a run at you.
But isn't that the gamble, Wilson? The way they both play is that it's the blanket that doesn't cover everything, right? You can't have that if you want to have the attacking talent that you have. Or can you attack and defend really well in the same team?
I mean, getting the balance right is what coaching is. But I do. It's not even just that that's the gamble they've taken. It's almost the gamble they have to take, because the truth is, in the domestic league, and I know Lens have pushed PSG relatively close this season, but I mean, Bayern had the League One.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, mathematically 2 or 3 weeks ago, but in reality, in about November. They never get to practice that. So if you suddenly ask, it's like when England used to go to a World Cup and it's going to be hot, we're going to have to pass the ball, and England had no idea how to do it, and therefore we're hopeless. Don't ask players to do a thing they haven't done all season. So you might as well attack, because that is what you're good at. But then you get this game where there's just no midfield.
Which is odd as well, sorry, because that's odd, because their midfields, they are two brilliant midfields. I
think PSG is a brilliant midfield. I think Bayern's is a decent midfield. I mean, I think Kimmich is not what he was. Pavlovic is not quite what he might be. But yeah, PSG's midfield on paper looks brilliant. Yeah, but it's just not tested in that way. And I have to say, I think Barry's been very kind to Neuer. I think I've lost which goals over. 4th and 5th goals, I think he's really flat-footed. I think.
You think?
Yeah.
Both in the corner, aren't they? The Dembele one's off the post, isn't it?
Yeah, but he's set himself completely to go the other way. It's like he can't conceive the idea the ball might go to his near post. I think he gets himself rooted far too early.
Sure, but, we all know as people over 40, changing direction is very difficult. So
he's not actually over 40 yet, is he?
I see. Johnny, Barry does make a really good point about the performances of the attacking players. I mean, I was trying to work out how to go through it. if we go through the goals chronologically, you almost touch on every player. So Harry Kane scores that penalty. Luis Diaz won it. Like, I thought Kane was brilliant last night. I can't think of a wrong decision he made in the whole game.
Yeah, Kane individually was great. I mean, I think there is this idea, right, that he famously doesn't turn up in big games, and he seems to be now turning up in more and more of them, right? Like a Euros semi-final and both legs of a Champions League semi-final, and now, sorry, both legs of a Champions League quarter-final and now a Champions League semi-final. Yeah, I mean, you could go through all of them. At least say, like, he could have had two or three potentially. There was one run where he basically gets all the way to the byline, and there's it's almost an own goal. It sort of hits the post, but like an incredible run. Diaz, cutting inside and running through the centre and dragging defenders with him, and yeah, I mean, look, we could talk about the attacking talent, and it is, I think the factors that Wilson mentioned. This is why super clubs are able to attract this level of talent. But I think once you have multiple players who you basically can't leave one-on-one, I think it just changes the game. It fundamentally rebalances the game to a huge extent. You're playing a kind of different game because your only real option against that is to defend in numbers, and which is obviously what most League One teams do. It's what most Bundesliga teams do against Bayern when they come up against Bayern. Having multiple players of that quality, and there's actually not that many. If you think about players who you basically you can't leave one-on-one, there's maybe like 24 who in that situation will almost inevitably get a shot away or create a big chance. And once you have multiple players of that quality, it does make a completely different game, because you are then forcing the opposition to really almost change the way they want to set up.
Yeah, I thought Diaz was sensational, Barry. Like just the way he carries the ball, and I mean, he was good at Liverpool, but I feel like he has gone up a level, and his touch for that goal is just ludicrous.
Yeah, again, Marquinhos is a brilliant defender. He's getting on a bit, but the way Diaz took the Harry Kane pass down, gave him a couple of yards, then the touch and the strike. He's brilliant throughout the game. I wonder what Liverpool fans must think when they see how well he's doing at Bayern Munich. He's part of a front three now last night they scored their 100th goal between them this season. And I think he left Liverpool because they weren't prepared to meet his salary demands. And
I think it was partly that he couldn't get visas for his family, wasn't it, as well?
Was that right? I didn't know that.
I think so, yeah. I think it was sort of one of those mutual, they realised that he was not going to be happy, so they just sort of accepted it.
All right, that's news to me, so that if that's the case, then fair enough. But yeah, I was going to say it looked like a bad error on Liverpool's part to let him go. We don't know. He might not have thrived as much if he'd stayed at Liverpool. But if that's it's visa-related issues, then fair enough. But yeah, he's brilliant. I mean, the Bayern front three is brilliant. Elise has also gone up several levels, and Kane is just outstanding.
Yeah. And then, we haven't talked about Kvaratskhelia yet, Wilson. Really. He was, it's just ridiculous. Ridiculously good.
Yeah, I mean, he is ridiculously good. He basically does one thing, but he does it exceptionally well, and nobody can really stop him. And I thought Wayne Rooney's comment that he's a little bit like Mark Overmars. I mean, he is, but he's a bit more powerful than Overmars. But that the way he comes short and then spins it behind, and he's going to go inside. But I just sort of started to think, he's had quite a quiet start, because he put in that one cross early on. And literally, as that thought sort of formed in my head, the ball's put through for him to cut in and equalise. You knew as soon as he starts, as soon as the weight goes for him to come inside, that's a goal from 3 or 4 seconds out. So yeah, you could say there's 5 or 6 of those players there, but he's just one of those players I absolutely love watching.
Steve says, I can already imagine you've got your head in your hands over that penalty for PSG. Michael says, ruining a game like this with a handball decision like that. I can hear Max Rushden yelling at a cloud from here. Andy just called it a Max Rushden special. Joseph says, Max, that's one of the best games of football ever. Please don't spend 75% of the pod talking about the handball. I've got to say, Johnny, I was so livid, just absolutely livid about it. And I am yelling at a cloud. There's nothing I can do. Like, it's insane that is now seen as a penalty by anyone, and there are people who go, no, that is a handball. He's actually intentionally moved his hand out and in. It's coming at such pace. I don't know who I'm talking to anymore, but like it's sad.
Yeah, it was a bit harsh.
Get a penalty for that. Yeah, thanks.
It was a bit harsh. I don't have a huge amount more to say than that. I mean, like I say,
this is what always happens. Max shouts at cloud. We all kind of agree with him, and then we move on. I don't think it ruined the game. I think it added to the spectacle. I mean, the question is, which of these two teams is happier? I think they're probably both quite happy with that result, because Bayern looked in danger of being down and out at 5-2, but they got it back to 5-4. They're at home next week. And PSG will be happy because they won. And I saw Enrique being interviewed after the game, and he was very happy. So, yeah, they're probably both.
It's interesting seeing Kane saying that Kane thought that Bayern had enough chances to make the game safe early on, which I think it raises an interesting question. Like, how many goals would you have needed to make that game safe? Because certainly early on,
5-2, I definitely didn't think, oh, this is done. I just didn't think it was done. So yeah,
7 maybe.
Yeah.
My concern for PSG was how knackered they looked the last 10 minutes. That's not a good sign, because it means if Bayern are within touch with 10, 15 minutes to go next week, then they can get back into it. But on the penalty, I mean, even if the ball hit his hand directly, I don't think that should be a penalty. But
of course,
it flicks his upper thigh and hip on the way onto his hand. I mean, the problem is that you can say it didn't change the game, but PSG won by 1, and that is 1 goal. If they end up winning the tie by that, it just feels cheap.
But what do we do about it, Wilson? I've tweeted IFAB. They don't reply. I've emailed IFAB. They don't listen to me. Like, other people must have more power.
The Premier League have got this right, basically, with handball. Like, Premier League's not in a bad place for handball. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than UEFA. It's those petty Eurocrats who impose their piddling regulations. We need to break away from Europe and set out alone.
But that's it. But that's the trouble, isn't it? Like, maybe that could... Are you saying that is the one benefit of Brexit? Is that the handball law is fine in the Premier League? And maybe Brexit was worth it?
I mean, the FA's never been that beholden to UEFA, so...
No.
But it does feel like... I don't know, is there a greater Euro tolerance for interfering bureaucracy? I don't know. Whereas our proud independent spirit means our island nation goes it alone.
Johnny, who do you think's in a better position now going into the second?
I still think Paris will do it. But Bayern will definitely go into that game. That they will believe that, you know, in front of a home crowd, that if they can get an early goal, certainly that they can overturn that. You know, and I think the belief in that team that we saw at 5-2 down is that whatever you score, we'll just score 1 more. You score 12, we'll score 13. And, you know, that can be incredibly powerful in an incredibly powerful belief when you're chasing a game. But as Barcelona discovered against Inter last season, it could also be a kind of a curse, because teams are always finding ways to cut you open, and you can never really put a game to bed. So I don't, unless Paris, you know, get 2 or 3 early goals, I really think it'll be a bit of a nail biter.
Wilson, obviously, lots of goals doesn't equal, you know, it's not linear in terms of that means it's a better game. So what is your perfect game of football? That's what I mean. What's the perfect Wilson football match?
I think, I'd want a bit more balance between attack and defence. I want to feel the goals are sort of hard earned rather than just sort of happening. I'd certainly want goalkeepers playing better than they did last night.
Mm-hmm. I thought Safanov did okay, actually. I'm sort of with Barry. I don't think either of them were terrible in this game.
I think that's very generous. But,
okay.
I mean, did they make 1 save between them of note?
Safanov made a few, came out
low
well.
Down to his left.
Yeah, yeah. So what, do you want a 3-2 or a 2-1?
I think once you get into more than certainly more than 7 goals, I'm feeling uncomfortable. It's just got a bit silly.
Okay.
Because it's about balance, right? You know.
Yeah. And so could you pick out? So could you take emotion out of football? Obviously, there are Sunderland games that will mean more to you than others, but like, can you objectively think of a football match that you've gone, this is the gold standard of a football match?
I think Spain-Yugoslavia in year 2000 was a really great game, 4-3 to Spain. So that was 7 goals.
That was 7, yeah.
I think you need at least 1 red card. Can I just circle back here? I think Wilson is being incredibly hard on the goalkeepers here. The only one I can think of where a goalkeeper was at fault was Ousmane Dembele's shot that he pulled in off the post, where Neuer was caught really flat-footed because he was expecting him to go the other side. And apart from that...
Unsighted as well. Unsighted.
I've just gone through all the goals,
I think the previous
and
goal
I
is
do not
worse than
see
that.
what more either keeper could have done to keep them out, really.
Neuer literally dies out the way of the 4th goal. He tries to predict where Kvaratskhelia is going to put it, and guesses wrong. And also, I don't think Safanov with the Elise goal... Like, he's in the middle of the goal. Why is he trying to get?
I mean, he's absolutely banged that.
But why is he diving that early?
I think you are being.
I don't like keepers predicting like that. Fine. I think you're being generous, so that's where we are.
Simon says, we need to send up the Joe Hart or Shea Given klaxon.
Well, I mean, they won't see it as being a goalkeeper error, will they? I mean.
Sure. I mean, I'd ask Beaver first, but there we go. Simon says, sure, the goals were good, but did you see the way PSG booted the ball straight out of play from kickoff? Football heritage. No, I'm a huge fan of this. I'm trying to get our Sunday League team to do this, but there are too many purists in the side. And I'm saying, look, PSG are doing it, for goodness sake. It's fine for territory. Box them in. But they're like, let's keep the ball. Anyway, producer Tayo says, by how many goals will Arsenal Atleti outscore tonight's Ballfest? Yeah. So we have Atleti Arsenal. It does seem, Johnny, it's almost too predictable to be like, well, this will be terrible. And it may not be terrible. We don't know. You know, Atleti are not the Atleti that we all think they are, as Sid has established. But what are we expecting tonight?
I mean, Atleti haven't been the Atleti of the popular imagination in arguably 5 or 6 years. They've been quite reliably entertaining in La Liga this season. I think the question is whether Arsenal can break them down. That whether Arsenal can get over their own neuroses and get over their own kind of incoherence. And actually put together an attacking performance worthy of the name. Because if they do, I think it could actually be an entertaining game. There's nothing that says that this is doomed to be a 0-0 or a 1-0. There are also plenty of very good attacking players in the semi-final. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of my Arsenal friends go like, how are we even in the same competition as these two, as Bayern and PSG? There is a real kind of inferiority complex that seems to have set in. But they have an incredible opportunity to get to a Champions League final, and I hope for their sake that they embrace it, because this is a tie that is there for the taking, really.
And if Arsenal do get through, which is a big if, Wilson, is that a more interesting football match, seeing two styles pitted against each other?
Not necessarily. Maybe. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I think I'd have Atleti favourites. Actually, I know they're 25 points off the top, but they've kind of jacked in the league. I mean, they'd lost 4 in a row, hadn't they, before the weekend? But they've been a funny team this season, Atletico. That they've played Barcelona 6 times, they've beaten them twice, but somehow they seem to have won the ones they needed to win. And I think Griezmann and Julian Alvarez are probably going to be the best 2 forwards on the pitch. So, given I think how tense Arsenal would be and how good Simeone's sides are at playing on that. I'm not saying it's 100% Atletico win, but I'd probably have them 55-45 favourites.
Arsenal played Atletico in the group stage. I think it was the 3rd round. Beat them 4-0. They know what they can do against Atletico, but that was a different Arsenal to the one we've seen in recent months, because the current Arsenal are paralysed by fear and seem to be their own worst enemies. But if they can channel the Arsenal that's beat Atletico 4-0, before Christmas, then of course they've got a chance.
I suppose if they do beat them 4-0 in both legs, they've got a very good chance of making it through to the final, don't they? Anyway, that'll do for part one. Part two, we'll begin with a big game in the Championship last night. Welcome to part two of the Guardian Football Weekly. So in the Championship, it was a massive game at St Mary's, ended Southampton 2, Ipswich 2, which means Southampton are out of the automatic promotion race in the playoffs. Ipswich are in the box seat now on 81 points. Millwall have 80 and Middlesbrough 79. So it goes down to the final day. You watched this game as well, Barry. What did you make of it?
Ipswich will feel they left that automatic promotion place behind them. They could have wrapped it up last night. Once Jack Clarke was outstanding for Ipswich, but had two late chances to win the game for them and seal promotion. One hit the post, hit the goalkeeper and went wide, could have gone in. That was desperately unlucky. Then he had a late shot, superbly saved by Peretz in the Southampton goal. So Ipswich will be gutted. They didn't wrap up promotion last night, but it makes things very interesting for the rest of us at the weekend. I think it's Saturday lunchtime these games are being played because it's, I think you called it a Monday, it's going to be a real bun fight for that second automatic promotion spot.
Yeah, win for Ipswich takes them up. They're home to QPR. Millwall home to Oxford, who are already relegated. Middlesbrough have the toughest game. They go to Wrexham, who do need the points to be sure of a playoff spot. And they are in a fight for the last playoff spot with Hull and Derby. Hull host Norwich and Derby host Sheffield United.
I was chatting to a fella yesterday, a Sheffield Wednesday fan, who is going to Hillsborough for their final game of the season. They're still dreaming of hitting the magical 0 point mark this season. And apparently Hillsborough is going to be an absolute sellout, and they're expecting the biggest crowd in the Championship this season of any Championship game.
Wow.
And I think that is an absolute heroic effort by Wednesday fans. Quite the wait.
Yeah, isn't it? At Old Trafford on Monday night, Manchester United beat Brentford 2-1. So that moves them third onto 61 points and now 11 points clear of Brighton in sixth. What did you make of this game, Johnny?
Yeah, I thought United were okay. They were decent value in the first half, and then I think Brentford came back at them quite hard in the second half, and had Thiago taken in one of those chances that they got. It could have been like a very, very different story. I still don't really know what United are trying to be. There have been clearly a lot of good individual performances. I thought Mainu was really good. They are obviously heavily reliant on Bruno still for the creative part of the game. I still don't see what Carrick is trying to make them. There's been a lot of talk about returning to solid United values or whatever. And from the games that I've seen of them under him, it's almost been quite a bit of a mishmash. They've played a lot of games where they've against opposition you'd expect them to beat. The Leeds game, for example, or the Bournemouth game, where they just kind of get stuck. And I don't know whether that's teething problems or whether it's almost a side that still has almost got a little bit of a free hit to the end of the season and are almost waiting for someone to stamp a kind of identity on them, because I don't really see what they're trying to do yet. But they've clearly made it into the Champions League next season. I think that's almost mathematically secure. So that's great for the cash machines. Yeah, I think I'm interested to see what they do in the summer, because I still haven't quite got a sense of what they're trying to be.
So do you think, because it is worth saying, and I think I'm right, and I've said it before, that they were just 1 point ahead of Tottenham when Carrick took over. So he's undoubtedly done a good job. But do you think, it feels like they should give him the job, like he's done enough, but do you think you don't know if that would be the right call or not?
Yeah, I don't think we know. I think the job that Carrick has now it's really different to the job that is going to await him next season. And what happens when they go into their first dip, because they're not obviously they're not good enough yet to go and get 85, 90 points and surge the title. There are going to be peaks and troughs, and because of the way that noise is amplified, how does Carrick deal with that? I think the Solskjaer parallels are kind of overdone a little bit. I think Carrick is a better coach than Solskjaer was at this stage of taking the United job. But it is a big leap in the dark, because there are going to be good coaches available this summer who United could get. And if they don't go and get those coaches, if they do kind of throw their lot in with Carrick and they're, mid-table in November and they have to sack him, it will feel like they've done the wrong thing.
If they don't hire Carrick and they get a big name, a different name in, a coach with more experience, whatever, and they don't go off to a flyer, there's just lots of people going, DNA, you had Michael Carrick.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really hard to tell, partly because they've essentially been playing with no pressure this season, but also because they went out of both cups at the earliest possible opportunity and didn't have Europe. They haven't, in the entire season, played a team who's played less football than them. They've been as fresh or fresher than every single opponent they've played. And you look at how shattered, for instance, Arsenal look. But I mean, not just Arsenal, but Arsenal, I think, really are showing the fatigue. Well, of course, United don't show that, because they've played 40 games at the end of the season. So how do you possibly judge? And the only way you can judge is if you're on the inside, and you hope some directors have somehow got a handle on what players think, on what players are doing, get a sense of how he is around the dressing room, around the club. And that's all you can base your decision on. But he's almost, if you were trying to create a situation where the decision is impossible, you couldn't have made it better than this, that he hasn't been so brilliant that you think you've got to give him a job. It's not like they're going out playing sparkling football, winning every game 4-5-6-0. And they haven't been rubbish either. They've been pretty good with the odd blip. And, in some ways it's good that they had the defeat to Leeds, for instance, and then were able to come back and win. So that tells you a little bit that it wasn't just a balloon waiting to be burst. But I still really have no idea how good a coach Michael Carrick is, and I'm really glad I don't have to make the decision.
So Jim Ratcliffe and his Politburo of bullshit, as Dion Fanning memorably called it, it's kind of changed since those days, but they get a lot of grief for making bad decisions. But this is going to be a gamble, whatever they decide, and it's because he's won 9 games, drawn 2, lost 2. The players seem to like him. The fans seem to like him. But he hasn't really done much. Like, he just picked Kobbie Mainoo and moved Bruno forward 20 metres closer to goal. That isn't exactly rocket science or tactical genius. And, I mean, they beat Brentford, but Brentford, if Igor Thiago had not being so uncharacteristically poor, should have won that game.
Yeah, but isn't that just being harsh on Carrick? Because it is hard to win any Premier League game. Right, winning Premier games is not easy, and if you've won 9 out of 13, that is actually.
You obviously didn't see Nottingham Forest play Sunderland on a Friday.
No. Or Brighton played Chelsea the other day. No, you make a good point. I don't know. I agree with you. I think it's very difficult. The other interesting point on that, Johnny, is this idea, because, if you remember last season when Tottenham beat Man United in the Europa League final, it was like, well, one side is set and one side is. This is a disaster, right? Man United are, they're not in any European football, whatever. But actually, if your squad isn't big enough, and then you have to play both European football and Premier League football, and Tottenham is an extreme example of that, given the injuries that they have and still have. But it's almost good to come 11th if you're a big team, and then you just have a free season and you can be good and you can be fresh. And I think, if your players are fitter and less tired, that makes such a massive difference.
It can be. I mean, I do think fatigue is one of the elements in football these days that it probably isn't talked about enough, partly because we don't have kind of the proprietary data on what playing 50 or 60 games a season does to, how do you quantify the performance impact of that load. And obviously there are people within clubs, there are people within the game who will have a handle on that. But it's clearly such a big part of the game. In terms of Spurs, I'm not sure staying out of the Champions League would have helped. I think they'd have just been even sadder, even sooner. Champions League was a little crumb of comfort in what has been a really, a dismal season for them. But I think generally speaking, that we don't really know what the fact that Villa have done well in Europe, and Forest have done well, and Palace have done pretty well. We don't really know what kind of effect that's had on their league campaign. How Palace certainly look as though they've put all their eggs in the Conference League basket. That they're being pretty. Glasner's been pretty honest about his rotation policy, but it's a huge boost to a coach. It's to a certain kind of coach who wants 6 days on the training field to work with them. And I think certainly United have benefited from that this season, and how they balance all of those conflicting schedules and competitions next season is I guess another element to it.
I mean, I think Barry would say, for someone who has to sit on every pre-show small talk, I do talk about fatigue a great deal. I'd say it's perhaps talked about too much. Kobbie Mainoo's signed a new 5-year deal. Reports indicate his wages jumped from 25 grand a week to something like 150 grand a week. God, that'd be a nice thing to sign, wouldn't it? And Brentford are still just 2 points off 6th, despite no wins in their last 6. Anyway, that'll do for part 2. Part 3 will begin with Jose to Real Madrid, ? Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So David Ornstein posting that Jose Mourinho is the preferred candidate of Florentino Perez to become the next Real Madrid head coach. Support not universal inside Real Madrid, but president driving process. So the 63-year-old is a strong contender. He has a £3 million break clause with Benfica. Is it a surprise, Baz, this, or not a surprise to you?
It has just come as a surprise to me because I wasn't aware of this. So you've blindsided me with that one. I am not a fan of Jose Mourinho. I think he's a really unpleasant man. But I actually think this might not be as mad as it sounds, because that dressing room needs someone to come in and instill some discipline, and an authoritative figure like Jose could be just what the doctor ordered. Because that dressing room is out of control, wild. Players don't listen to the coach, or they might listen to him. So my first impression, without really giving it much thought, is that, as crazy as it sounds, it might not be a ridiculous thing for them to do.
I mean, I think the big thing is how the dressing room, and particularly Vinicius, reacts to Mourinho's comments after the Benfica Real Madrid game, when Prestiani, he ended up getting a 6-game ban for homophobic abuse, although the initial allegation was of racial abuse of Vinicius.
Yeah. And
Mourinho came up with some very strange comments after that, sort of saying, how could this club ever racially abuse? How could this club ever racially abuse anybody when Eusebio was one of our great players? I'm not sure how Vinicius will take that, and clearly, Vinicius had the support of his teammates. If you look at what happened on the pitch, so that would seem to me a really obvious sticking point. Now, I don't know, maybe Vinicius has moved on and doesn't care. I don't know, but that's certainly something we would need resolving, I think.
Yeah, I suppose the interesting thing, Johnny, is just like who can be a good coach for Real Madrid? Like who's Zidane is good and Ancelotti was good, but it's like what do you have to be? I mean, good there.
We talked about this, right? It's almost like there's no other club that really prepares you for the Real Madrid job, because the currents, the internal politics, the level of expectations, the level of the primacy of the dressing room, I guess, and then of course the totemistic figure of Perez. The internal currents of that job are almost unique, and it's very hard predicting which coaches are going to succeed at it and not. Mourinho, when he goes there in 2010, you'd say is basically at the peak of his powers, and just about, I think, manages to do. He does an okay job there. He wins them the league, which he keeps still keeps banging on about. But is he the man who's going to get the best out of the slightly uneven array of talent that Madrid have now? I'm not really sure. You know, we talked about the Vinicius, the Prestiani incident. You know, I wonder if a lot of Madrid fans are going to want to have him in place. They obviously want, you know, they made little secret of the fact that they wanted Jurgen Klopp, and they were trying to, you know, they're trying to persuade Klopp. Might still manage to do it, but doesn't appear to be much progress on that for now. Beyond that, you know, you're looking at maybe Pochettino.
Yeah, but on that point, like, Klopp would have to change his style, wouldn't he? Like, they wouldn't do what Klopp wanted them to do. Or would they do it because Klopp is Klopp?
The Alonso appointment was really interesting because it was almost an attempt to synthesize this kind of the Madridismo, the kind of the club culture, some, you know, the club DNA sort of appointment with a coach who, you know, is clearly very hands-on, who has very defined ideas of what he wants a team to do and how he wants them to run and play and press and pass. And it got to a point where they just weren't having it. So I think that should be a kind of a wake-up call for them, that they essentially have created a team that only a certain kind of coach can ever really get to a tune out of. And I think that's quite an invidious position for them to be in, because it basically rules them out of 80 or 90% of the up and coming coaches in world football.
At the World Cup, players, you mentioned Prestiani, who cover their mouths, could face getting a red card if they cover their mouths when speaking to opponents during confrontations. This decision was taken during a special meeting of IFAB in Vancouver, where presumably they didn't talk about the handball law. Also, players who leave the pitch in protest at a referee's decision could face a red card following what happened in AFCON between Morocco and Senegal. Both law changes have been approved as competition opt-ins by IFAB. Also, whatever that means. And yellow cards are to be reset after the group stage, as well as after the quarterfinals. So that feels like a good idea. Does everyone think that's a good idea?
Well, look, it's better than what was before. But I mean, the obvious thing to do, the right thing to do, is after the last 16, you cancel group stage yellow cards. Because to be honest, if you're getting 2 yellow cards and, you know, within 4 games, you should be getting a ban. And what you don't want, if you don't get booked in the first 2 group games, you've got carte blanche to take a yellow in the 3rd group game. That's a bad idea. So after the last 16, or after the last 32 in now the tournament's expanded, delete yellow cards from the group stage.
Or if you're already through after, you know, if you're 4-0 up in your 2nd group game, you can take a yellow card and know that you're going to be banned for a dead rubber in the 3rd game.
I mean, that's pretty hard to avoid. I'm not sure how you do avoid that, but
and avoid having to take that.
Yeah, I don't know how you could structure it where that didn't happen, but I don't know why they're so reluctant to sort of not just sort of have the amnesty sort of backdated slightly, which would seem to solve a lot of problems.
John Stones has confirmed he'll be leaving Manchester City in the summer as a free agent. He announced on Instagram. Man City released a glowing official statement as well, calling him the very embodiment of Pep Guardiola's City and praising his astute reading of the game. He was Pep's 2nd ever signing when he came from Everton for 50 million, 293 appearances so far, 19 major trophies, 6 Premier League titles, a Champions League. And we had a really nice message on this subject from someone called Freddie, who said, seeing John Stones and Bernardo Silva announce their departure from Man City is something I did not think I'd find emotional. I'm a Liverpool fan, so if anything, I'd be happy to never see these players who've been the cause of so much stress again. John Stones' goal line clearance that might have been the difference in us lifting another Premier League trophy, and Bernardo Silva waltzing through the middle of the park any time we played them. The reason it's so bittersweet is that almost a year ago to the day of writing this, my dad passed away after a 5-month-long battle with a very aggressive type of melanoma skin cancer. He was a lifelong Man City fan. You can imagine the friction that might have caused over the years, and for so long, I would have wanted City to have pissed off for a bit and let Liverpool dominate, maybe like that Klopp team deserved. But there they were, with accompanying text messages from Dad anytime they beat us over 90 minutes or over 38 games. It's funny how grief can change that. It's now a fond memory that for so long, my dad's and my team were the 2 top teams fighting for everything, and now I would not change a single moment or the exchanges that were had over it, pending the PSR findings, of course, he says. His 2 favourite players were Stones, who in Dad's word was the epitome of the Rolls Royce, and Bernardo Silva, who he affectionately called bubblegum, as the ball just stuck to his foot. I'm not sure if I'm writing on behalf of my dad to make sure these 2 greats of the modern era are acknowledged, or for myself to acknowledge that grief in football does strange things. In a sport that's often passed down the generations from father to son, it must be so prominent for so many people, not just me. So thank you to John Stones and Bernardo Silva for the role you've played in my life, even if I hate the team you play for. And thank you, Dad, for making me fall in love with the game in the same way you did. It's a beautiful message, Freddie. Thank you.
Is there any talk of where Stones will go?
I heard some Everton rumours,
Really?
which would make sense.
Sorry, I
guess.
don't want to disparage Everton, but is he not a bit of a cut above Everton? High flying Everton?
High flying Everton with Everton Cup Everton. They're not getting relegated. So I don't know is the answer.
Okay.
I'm too lazy to have sources, Barry. So reports in Spain, he's willing to take a pay cut to join Barcelona. But Everton and Coventry also linked. So there you go. That's from the BBC. Mark says, Roy Hodgson spotted in the West Country klaxon. What a day at Scoops. This is on Scoops Western Supermare Facebook page, an ice cream shop. We were thrilled to welcome a very special guest, Roy Hodgson, stopped by for a visit. Football emoji. It was an absolute pleasure serving such a legend of the game, from managing at the very top level to popping in for a sweet treat. He couldn't have been more lovely. Applause emoji. Moments like this make what we do even more special. Great people, great vibes, and of course, great ice cream. Ice cream emoji. Thanks for coming in, Roy. You're welcome back anytime. Hashtag Scoops Moments. Hashtag special guest. Hashtag Roy Hodgson. Hashtag football legend. Hashtag ice cream time. Hashtag sweet treats. Hashtag local love. And there's Roy, looking very happy.
Have I told you about when I met Rio Ferdinand in an ice cream shop?
You haven't, but listen, it's quite a short pod, so fill your boots.
I'm afraid to say he did not behave with dignity. It was in Baden-Baden in 2006.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he jumped the queue. He pushed in front of me. I was disgusted by him, and I'm afraid it confirmed some opinions I'd already held about him and have not changed since.
Was it a chat and cut? Like, did he chat to somebody? Just, because there's a difference between just marching in front of you and, like, maybe, I don't know, Wayne Rooney was there too, and he sort of went to talk to Wayne Rooney, and then it happened to be in front of you.
No, just barged in front.
And did you say, "Excuse me, Rio"?
No, I didn't. I should have done, but I was. I was still in my 20s then. I was a very young man. I didn't quite have the same. What's the word?
Confidence.
Yes, I was thinking of a more negative word, but let's go with confidence. Yes.
Were you expecting him to leap out with a camera crew and like the World Cup wind-ups?
Yeah.
Like,
I've got to say, Johnny, that is, if he said, and now we're going to prank football writer Jonathan Wilson by getting in front of him to order our one scoop of pistachio, I just don't think that's going to get the hits they're expecting. I don't know if any of you have seen this, a video posted by someone called Tom Feeney going, the problem with all the Rochdale v York videos is just when you think you've seen every angle, you spot and then capital letters, Rochdale fan emptying their dead loved one's ashes on the centre spot while celebrating their, inverted commas, winner, of course, before York went on to win afterwards. It is inconclusive, but there is somebody on the centre spot with a sort of plastic bag and, like, tipping it as you would tip ashes onto the centre spot and then embracing someone. But that is some moment to then go back to the crowd and then see York score a winning goal.
Scattering ashes, I don't know if any of you have done it, but it's really difficult.
Is it?
There's
a Mel
lot
Brooks
of
film,
them.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so I scattered my dad's ashes off a pier off Roker Pier in Sunderland. And it wasn't a windy day by the standards of the North Sea, but there's always a breeze. So obviously the logic was I'll tip on the outside of the pier so that it goes out to sea rather than just being swept back up the weir, back where he's come from, as it were. And most of it was on my trousers, ended up just going in the washing machine. Right. Then my mum's ashes, I scattered near there's a bit of forest near Ullswater in the Lake District. And the sort of tipping was fine because it was sort of like it's like a bank comes down, there's a bench with a view that you really liked, and then just in front of the bench there's quite a low wall. It drops quite suddenly to this field with cows in, so I was able to tip it over the wall into the sort of long grass, so there wasn't the sort of blowback effect. But then I went for a walk and I came back a couple of hours later and there was a bit of wind and there was a family sitting on the bench eating a picnic, and I was like, oh no, like Like you're probably eating the ashes of my mum. That's not. Oh no. What do I do?
Yeah, I think you could have said something to Rio Ferdinand. I think even though you had more confidence at this time, you were better not to tell the family that
Yes,
that amidst their ham sandwich was some small part of your mother. Anyway, seems like a good place to end, doesn't it? Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Johnny.
Cheers, Max.
Thanks, Wilson.
cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, Baz.
Thank you.